Welcome back to Radio Free Fredonia Con with me and the beautiful co-host Lady Styx and our guest tonight,
Andi. Wait. It's not the con. You're getting ahead of yourself, girl. No, it's just Radio Free Fredonia. It's the podcast tonight.
Oh, goodness. I said con, didn't I? I'm tired.
That's okay.
I have not slept well this week. I have myself super wound up over the CAR discussion, which we're not going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, also, I know you've been getting lots of questions about the Kickstarter.
We have. So that's where we're going to announce our guest tonight is Brad. And Brad is going to tell us about all the things Samsut, the Kickstarter, and more importantly, dinosaurs in 1879 and in tabletop RPGs. Because I'm a 6-year-old and I like dinosaurs. Success. So, hi, Brad.
How's it going, everybody?
So,
hi, Brad. I will admit, Andi, when I saw the topic, I wondered if you didn't manipulate the entire book just so you could discuss dinosaurs on the podcast.
Well, dinosaurs aren't as much in the Samsut side. That was more on the Saurids. That's more Andi wanting to talk about dinosaurs.
I just like dinosaurs.
Yeah, I do. That's totally fine.
So, what we were saying right before you got here and we turned it on is that Lady Styx knows like nothing about the Samsut. I haven't told her anything about it. And I like this because it allows us to have somebody who's going to ask those questions that maybe people are afraid to ask because they don't want to look like they don't know stuff. Whereas Lady Styx and I are perfectly happy saying we don't know stuff.
Totally. There's a lot I do not know.
We're good at not knowing. But, Brad, we expect that you do know.
Well, I know a lot of things. Depends on what you ask, but because I will admit there's a lot of stuff that I don't know too.
About Samsut or about dinosaurs? Because I know whatever you don't know about dinosaurs, I probably know.
I would say about things in general, but look, Samsut, that I can tell you all about.
2 weeks ago, I taught a first grade class the problems of and differences between not a dinosaur and a dinosaur. Because just because it's prehistoric in the correct time period does not make it a dinosaur. It has to be a land reptile and has to have the right hip set or it's not a dinosaur. See? These are important life skills to teach 6-year-olds.
Okay, so I have a really dumb question.
No dumb questions. Unless I ask it.
Today is forgot to set the alarm, woke up 10 minutes before the podcast day.
Hey, so, it's also your birthday week. Happy birthday week.
Thank you.
So you get a pass because it's your birthday week.
That's true. She did offer to let me not come tonight. And I said, that is not an option. So one of my questions is, where is Samsut? I mean, like, I know nothing. I just totally did not do my research tonight.
I can kind of help a little bit. But I think
people who are asking these questions, if I have these questions, there's somebody out there who's probably got the same question.
They're on the other side of the looking glass.
Yeah, now,
that
Andi,
part
I'll
I know.
You fill in what you know, and then I'll fill in the gaps.
So so they're on the other side of the looking glass with the Saurid people. My question is, and I actually don't totally know this because I have not read the Samsut stuff yet, is how did they get there? Like, I actually don't I haven't had time to read the Sword book either, so I'm not even sure how they got there. So I don't know how they're there. But there's like a whole other planet on the other side.
To the Grove. Yeah. The Grove is the Sword's native homeland. That's where they are originally from. The Samsut went over in a naturally occurring portal that occurred way back near the fall of Babylon.
Okay. Pause question. So the Saurids, which are strangely similar to the Tiscrangs, are naturally there. So are they the Tiscrangs? Are they like just similar to the Tiscrangs? Are we not answering that question? Because that's actually an answer too.
I'll give you this much. If you look in the back of the Sword source book, there is a lexicon of a bunch of different words of things that phrases and stuff like that. They have a word in their language called Tiscrang. and it basically translates to travelers going a far distance away, commonly ones that aren't expected to come back. And I'll leave it there.
So in other words, that it means people who are lost and are happily lost and are not ever go, the well's over there, 20,000, 50 gajillion miles away.
Okay, so they were already there, and the Samsut went there. Is this like the, Barsave, what is it? The one, I know this word. Per length, where it's like the bubble type of thing? Was there a bubble? Like a pocket dimension bubble? Possibly?
Possibly. I won't. Like I said, I won't expand further on that. People can play with a lot of that how they want to within their backgrounds and games and stuff. But there are connections there. But they have a word in that language, like I said, it basically translates to travelers going somewhere and generally aren't expected to come back.
Okay, so now what about the Samsut?
So the Samsut came over near the fall of Babylon. They had migrated over, so they're descendants of the Babylonians, Akkadians, all the mess of Mesopotamia stuff. They
know about Gilgamesh.
And yes.
See, they already know about Gilgamesh. We don't have to explain it to them. Got it.
Well, there's some differences in how it's drifted over the years in their culture. And a lot of that is because when they came over through the portal, they encountered these ancient ruins of somebody. They're not entirely. It's not entirely sure who they were. The Samsut called them the Anunnaki, and they considered the technology and things that they left behind gifts from their gods. The Anunnaki are the names they use for their ancient gods. This technology that they encountered allowed them to directly manipulate life energy into physical energy and back and forth. So over a long period of time, they've managed to figure out how to use this. They use it for things like powering railguns, powering contragravity. They have anti-gravity equipment, and they also use it to reanimate the dead and bring them back to life as foot soldiers and laborers. So, like the things where the British would, you need to pump water out of the ground. The British would go and make a steam engine and have the steam engine run a pump to pull the water out of the ground. The Samsut will raise a skeleton and tell the skeleton to wind a crank and just do that endlessly until its batteries run out or it falls apart.
Okay, so that brings up a good question, and let's Lady Styx, you want to ask first, whatever you want to ask.
I was gonna, I will admit I'm kind of confused. What are they using now to animate the dead?
Well, and so that's partially what I was going to ask. So it sounds like this is a technology, but is it a technology or is it a magic?
Little a column A, little a column B. It kind of falls under that idea of any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Okay, I can dig this, because it's a lot of magic that you would have found in truthfully in Earth Dawn or in some other games. I mean, that's necromancy.
A little bit, but there is a technology side to it where they kind of.
Okay,
it sounds very complex to me.
It does. Break it down for us, Brad. So if I was playing a game set in on that side of the looking glass, okay, and I came up against some Samsut, they could have magic technology zombies with them?
Yes, yeah, that is actually the zombies and skeletons that are the main front foot soldiers that they will send off against the British. So that's why you see on a bunch of the art where we have a bunch of British soldiers fighting undead. That's kind of their main fighting force.
Okay, so it's not just zombies, it's skeletons and zombies.
Yes.
It's anything that can be animated through magic.
Okay, so does that mean like creatures too? Or just peoples?
Yes. We do expand upon that in the Samsut sourcebook. There are rules for reanimating creatures. Now, controlling them is a lot more difficult. A humanoid creature, because basically the way they do this is they have these helmets that connect into control modules for the undead, and then they have controllers who will manipulate and control the forces and direct them what to do. A human is much easier capable of controlling a humanoid body. An animal is a lot more difficult for them to handle. They can do it, but it takes a lot of additional skill and a lot of additional effort. But we do have rules for that to put into the book.
Okay, so
you could absolutely do that.
So the issue isn't on the side of the undead thing. The issue's on the side of the controller. Because, elephants are not as smart as peoples. And when you want elephants to be a siege machine, apparently you line them up in the direction you want them to go, you get them drunk, and then you don't be in front of them. This is how this works. So a reanimated elephant, creature, whatever, it's not that the creature isn't bright enough, it's that the controller's not used to that type of body and how it moves. Am I getting this? Okay, see? Woo!
Yep.
I scored. Lady Styx, you with me?
I'm here. So it's more about how exercising your perception of how something works and the reality of how it works and getting them to match to do control.
Essentially, yeah. Perception. It partially that, and then also partially force.
So how much energy it takes to. It's the mathematics of like inertia and a object in motion stays in motion and all of that, which is powered by the magic of it. So probably someone who's European would go, this is all magic, and they're going, no, this is science.
The Brad in the room.
Yes,
you do know.
It kind of does the Reese's Pieces. You got your science and my magic. You got your magic and my science.
Got it. Okay.
All right. They asked if they're not being controlled. So let's say we've animated it. It has a hat, right? But if no one's acting on it, and if no one's saying, go do this right now, do they just stand there? Are they like statues? Do they collapse? How does that work?
Yep. Depends on how they're set up. And it mostly varies between zombies versus skeletons. Zombies still have enough of their brain material and stuff left where what they will basically do is kind of, if they're standing and they're not given any continuing orders, they'll stand there and just kind of shiver and relive their death throes, and it's really creepy and unnerving. Skeletons will just stand there and not do anything.
Okay.
So in other words, it still has memories of past existence. That's pretty scary. Though I will admit, I'm kind of envisioning like all these undead with aluminum foil hats on their head being controlled.
Or I
like it.
Electronic metal spike that's driven into their heads to man the control module.
That sounds less hat-like. That sounds very less hat. Sounds mean.
Right. No, the helmets are what they use on the living controllers who are manipulating them.
Hey, wait, Brad, do you have any art to show us what it looks like?
Sally, give me 1 second here.
Because I've got my screen up so that you can see the room.
I was going to say, I bet you if we asked Andi nice enough, but she probably doesn't have enough time, we could make her do a stick figure of it.
I could. I mean, time-wise, stick figures is cheap and easy. I make this happen. As soon as I see the actual art, because otherwise...
Gonna have Andi doing illicit stick figures of undead now. Hey, that'll lead us into Halloween.
I was going to say, make sure you do dripping gore, Andi. You gotta make sure the gore is like the ooze is dripping.
Well, no, I'm doing illicit. All right, I'm gonna take a picture.
1 second.
This one's not as illicit, so I shouldn't get in as much trouble.
Discord reduced their file size options, so I gotta reduce the size of this one. 1 second here.
All right, you do that while I work on uploading my stick figure.
So I'm going to ask a kind of dumb question here. When you guys say the other side of the looking glass, what is that meaning for people who've like never know nothing about the system?
I made a girl stick figure. You're welcome.
I can tell.
My boy stick figures have a third leg.
You have the spike really good, but I don't see a hat. There's like no John T. Beret or anything.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. It's like it sounds like it's not a hat. It's a spike. So
is it like maybe a spike with a coil coming off end to receive the an antenna type thing?
I could put like.
By the way, Andi, I think you did really good for the time constraints.
I did fantastic. I mean, I can work on this a little bit more. I can make some number 4s, and then they'll have some high heels on. And then let's see. I can give well, they don't really need hands, but I'll put some eyeballs and a smiley face.
So is the Samsut, they're not dinosaurs. The swords are the dinosaurs. Are the Samsut humanoid?
Yes. The Samsuts are humans, and almost exclusively humans. What they use for the technology to power things, they have these enormous towers in the center of their cities they call the Life Giver. And it radiates a field in a certain radius around the city, and it pulls life energy from everything in the radius. So all of the people, any plants, trees, just anything they have that's live, it pulls a little bit of energy. And basically what this translates to a couple of points of strain that's pulled from everybody in the radius every day. That energy from that strain gets fueled into the Life Giver, which is what they then use to power all of their equipment and do all of their rituals and such.
So like every day it takes a little of your energy, like a succubus.
Yeah.
So do you die sooner?
Okay, so,
do you have shorter lifespan?
Most of them do have the lifespan impacted a little bit. They don't do it enough where it's going to completely kill off the populace. They have a set of rules for this, which they call the balance, and they stick to this ardently. When they first got a hold of it, and they were fighting amongst themselves over things, they were overexerting themselves and drained the life out of a lot of areas, and found that this is going to cause a lot of problems if we pull too much. So they have rules to regulate how much they can pull. The leadership of the Samsut, their higher ups, they actually take some of that energy and will have it put into them. So they have a 3 case level system. They have the Ardites, which are your basic ground level serf workers. They go out, they do what manual labor isn't done by undead. And the main purpose for them is to have a population to pull life energy off of. You have the Mushkinites, which oversee them, and they're kind of the middle management sort of things between them and the upper levels. You have to elevate yourself to a certain status to get the Mushknight status, and they can get some additional treatments and benefits and things like that. And then you have the Amalettes, and the Amalettes actually will have enough life energy pumped into them through a big, long, complicated ritual where they become essentially immortal. And they are the leaders, the government officials, the higher echelon, and they're the ones who are actually leading the Samsut. So the Samsut fighting amongst themselves, they may be motivated by feuds and alliances and things that the general populace doesn't even remember. It may have been from the time of their ancestors. They can have stuff from 5, 6, 7, 8, 100, 1,000 years ago by their leaders that are controlling them.
Okay, so I've pulled up the picture that you posted. And so we've got this woman, and she looks a little sad, and she's got this kind of collar, metal shoulder neck piece, and she's holding a helmet.
Yes. So the neck piece is surgically implanted, and it connects into their spinal cord. That's where the control comes in, and then the helmet is what actually transmits their orders. So when they put the helmet on, it connects into the neck piece.
Okay, so the neck piece is where, like, the quote spike kind of is.
Essentially, it's more delicate, but that's for the controllers going in. For the undead, they'll have for the zombies, they basically just get a spike that's just jammed through their.
Okay, well, so she's a controller,
and it goes directly into the brainstem.
So she's a controller. Yes. Okay, so do we have an art with like a zombie? Because what I was drawing was a zombie. I have female zombie.
gotcha.
Now I have a classy female zombie who has a hat and shoes. Ta-da! Classy female zombie.
Here.
Aren't you proud of me? Lady Styx, look at my... I updated it.
Just a second, I'm working on it. I noticed that you...
I gave her a
you
hat.
did update. Oh, I did see
And
the hat. Yeah, no, it
shoes.
works.
See? She's working
It
it now.
works.
There's some with the skeletons. I don't think I have a zombie
Okay.
just in my art
So
collection.
I'm going to
but
bring
you can
this
see how this...
picture up and making it big on the screen. So you can see the
I
zombies.
can see the stuff on the side of their head. Yeah, I understand how it works now.
So they'll have the control module inside the head, and it does make the eyes glow, which gives it an extra creepy vibe. And then the power module is put in the chest.
Okay. So we have a couple of questions.
By the way, that's amazing art.
So
kudos.
So we have a few questions. So one of them is it 1-to-1 or one control? And I think the answer is pretty, like, it's one controller can control how many?
Yeah, one controller can control multiple undead, depending on how they go about it. It depends on their rank and what their level of ability is. Again, we've got rules for that, because you could actually play an undead controller in the game if you absolutely wanted to. We put the profession for that. So depending on your rank, you can control more undead, in more powerful undead, like the critters and that sort of thing. Think of it very similarly to how a summoner could summon multiple or more powerful spirits. It works very similarly in terms of the mechanic in that regard.
All right.
So if you're playing, if you're from Earthdawn and you're playing an Elementalist or another Mancer, you used to the spirit mechanics, it's very similar to that.
Okay. So the other questions were, with the skeletons, what is done to hold the creature, quote, together? Is that just magic?
So when the power field goes up, there is basically a matrix, an energy matrix that charges through the skeleton and animates it and keeps it all together. If you take out the power module, the skeleton collapses in a heap.
Okay. Well, that's good to know in case I have to fight some. Take out power module. Ooh, do they explode? If I shoot the power module, does it explode?
The power modules can explode.
Yes.
And they are... shooting them directly generally doesn't cause it to explode. They have to have a feedback loop created, so it's more complicated than that. But it is definitely possible to make them explode. And I know you'll enjoy this. The energy density of these things, of the power modules and the batteries that they use, is massive. I did the calculations for this. Years ago, we were running a... this was back when Andrew was line developer, and he had written up a scenario. And he had written up at the end where they discover an Anunnaki device, and they have to go and try and retrieve it and bring it back. And there's a potential for the battery to go critical at the last minute. Now, when he wrote up he just did some basic, make it up for stats and everything, and wrote up for the explosion. I realized the characters have a vehicle, and they could outrun the explosion. And the energy, the radius just seemed way too small for what it could potentially be. So I actually went and did the calculations. And when it got down to it, I had to go find, there was a website that actually lets you calculate the radius of bombs and basically simulate, okay, if, such and such megaton bomb went off and put it on map, how much explosion, how much damage would do. The battery that they were dealing with for this device was about the size of your average, 35-gallon garbage can. It had enough explosive radius that it would completely level.
Wow. Impressive.
See, I don't think that people understand explosives. So long ago when I was in high school, I had the worst science teacher ever. And so he starts out this one class with well, you girls won't understand, but you boys, which always drove me crazy because there was only 2 boys in a class of 16. So if the vast majority of the class isn't going to get it, this is dumb. But anyway, he was talking about pulling apart bullets to play with the black powder. And I'm like, obviously you don't reload because, you're crazy. We don't pull apart bullets. You just go get the black powder, right? And at one point, I think my dad had enough black powder in the garage that you probably could have blown up a city block. At least it seemed like it. But might not quite have been that bad. But the point being is that I don't think people realize just how much boom is in boom stuff.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
the technical.
totally.
That's the technical jargon. Boom stuff.
The technical jargon is boom stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly.
People don't know how much boom is in the boom stuff.
The energy density of these batteries is insane.
So, Lady Styx, I have another question that ties into this really good. You cool with that?
Go for it.
So, it sounds like there's a lot of cool magic technology. What's your favorite magic technology in the Samsut book? And does it involve dinosaurs? Still 6, still like dinosaurs.
I think my favorite of the ones we came up with, it's not a dinosaur one, but I still think it's pretty cool. Okay. It's contragravity weapons. So the contragravity is your anti-gravity, so that things can lift. Now, if you know a lot about the physics of trying to deal with mega large weapons, you always get the classic tropes of somebody wielding the huge sword. The big anime fans will always aware of that. In terms of actual practicality, that never works, because a human trying to be able to wield that much weight, you'd get a massive hit if you could actually smack somebody with it. Trying to lift it and wield it and maneuver it around, it would just be insane. There's no possible way to do it. So we wrote this in, so the Samsut take some of their contragrav units, put it in giant massive weapons like that, so they can flip a switch on the handle of their giant sword or whatever, and now the sword weighs practically nothing because it's anti-grav. So they can pick it up and wield it like it's nothing, and then when they go to do the downstrike, smack somebody with it, they flip the switch off, and now you get the full gravity just hitting all at once. So you can get the massive damage without having to fight, wielding it around.
That's kind of cool and naughty. So we have another question from the audience. So if a 35-gallon drum thing would take out a major airport, the little ones on the chest of these skeletons, he says, would be kind of like a landmine if you got it to blow.
Basically, yeah.
But it would depend, I think, too. I mean, let's get into a little bit of physics here. If it's at the bottom of the pile, it's going to do more damage than if it's just standing out in a field.
Well, you're talking about shrapnel.
Yeah.
Shrapnel always makes things worse. Just saying.
Well, yeah, and that depends on the overpressure and everything like that, and because explosions need to be contained to be damaging. If it's just combustion out in the air, well, yeah, it's a bit fair, but that doesn't make it an explosion.
Okay, so Brad, here's my question. Are you ready? This is an OP question. If the battery is constantly being charged and you cause it to explode, can you theoretically keep the explosion fed and going and burning because it's constantly being powered? Or does it just destroy the unit and it's a one-time boom, bang, you're done?
At a certain point, the material for the battery will become too far spread out, and it won't be able to sustain the things. Like I said, it's got to be like a feedback loop, essentially, where it causes it to overload. Once the battery material expands out too far, it can't maintain the field, and then it loses the overcharge.
Oh, so if you get an entire platoon, can you spread it and just make one huge big battery and blow it that way?
If you wired them together,
potentially, if you rigged it up that way, you could do something like that to create a big spread of battery, things like that. So the interesting thing about the batteries, they're actually liquid cooled, and the batteries themselves are fluid until the energy matrix acts upon it, at which point it turns solid, and then
it's non-Newtonian.
It actually kind of crystallizes.
Yes,
it is. It is.
So Andy,
and once the energy matrix attached on it, then you see the anode and cathode form, and it kind of forms like a crystal.
The batteries are oobleck.
Maybe.
See, oobleck is liquid until you put a pressure on it, then it becomes a solid. The batteries are oobleck. They're liquid until the energy field hits and they become.
Andy, you thought this was going to be about dinosaurs, and we're probably going to spend a good another however many minutes discussing how to make the ultimate bombs out of zombies and skeletons.
Well, you see, it's still about dinosaurs because technically Brad has already said that we could do this not to a human skeleton, but to a dinosaur. So now I'm just envisioning hordes of dinosaur skeleton zombie hooked up to batteries that were exploding places. Boom. Still dinosaurs.
How do they guess we're going to make that happen?
Because I'm 6.
I will throw this at you, Andy. Let me see if I can get this to upload.
So
there's the cover for the Samsut sourcebook, which fantastic art we had.
I like the art.
And what I can tell you for this one, this actually inspired me to write an entire other section of the book.
Really?
Because before this, what we had, all of everything that's described in everything previous, all of the undead controllers, they're all done in these sedan chairs. So basically what they do is they'll be in the big upright chairs, and then they'll have a group of zombies or skeletons pick them up and carry them around. We didn't have any of them riding like that. But I saw the art from this. I'm like, no, that's cool. We're going to make that a thing. So I actually wrote up an entire set based purely on this. I wrote up an entire group of undead controllers called the Dreadsteed Legion. And they are actually riders that they'll go around. So that way they're basically cavalry that can control undead, and they ride around in the going through the battle, and then just go control, give orders to groups of undead, and then wheel around and ride over to the other one and just be able to move around that fast. So now it takes a lot of effort, because not only do they have to be able to control the undead, they have to be able to control their mount at the same time.
I can make this more dinosaur-y. You want to watch me, Lady Styx?
Go for it.
So part of the stuff that they can do, Brad, if I understand this correctly, is they can manipulate creatures. So like they have a camel-like creature that they've manipulated to drink like salt water, I think.
Yeah,
now that has like
that's
acidic
part of the
spit.
life giver technology is they can change the biology of creatures so that the way they can.
So how have they changed dinosaurs?
So we haven't really done a lot of writing in the specifics of any dino tech. Most of the dinosaurs that are around are more in the Sword regions. It takes a lot of effort to try and get those brought over to the Samsut, because they live in a big desert environment. And there's not a lot of the dinosaurs that really care for that much, because there's not a whole lot of water around. And big critters like that generally need a lot of water.
But they could.
They could. It absolutely could.
See?
So it's almost like they're in the same world or continent, or however you want it, same land mass, or however you want to put it, but they're in very different environments. So therefore, while they know of each other, they don't necessarily, there's not a lot of crossover. Some, but yeah.
Where they cross over, I think they fight.
Before the British came along, the Samsut actually were in a war with the Saurids. And this is actually why a lot of the Saurids have allied with the British, because the British are going over and fighting their old enemy. So, okay, yeah, we'll help you, go take those out.
The enemy of my enemy.
Happening is exactly. They basically fought to a standstill. The Saurids were able to enact some additional rituals that were affecting their undead troops. In the Samsut don't have, well, they have an army besides the undead. That's the bulk of what they have available. They just don't have the numbers of forces once you take out the undead troops, and they are a massive resource. So once the Samsut backed off, and they worked out an armistice. There are a set of land bridges that connect. Well, it's still technically the same continent. They're basically like two regions of it. So the Samsut are to the southeast, the Saurids are to the northwest, and the British are on the continent where the Saurids are.
Okay, so
Got it.
okay. So I know that for the Kickstarter, if we get to a high enough level, we get a map, right?
Yes.
And that'll give us a better idea of the Samsut area.
Yes, and I can. Let me see if it'll let me upload it here. Yep, I can show you the map that I got right now, and this was the version of it that was put in the book. So it's set for black and white. So this is one that I worked on.
So
the actual maps of the region were generated before, but I did worked on the art side to kind of pull everything in to show more of the biome layout and put in the little symbols for the cities and everything like that.
So okay, so that's where the Samsut are. So the Saurids would be more east, more north, more south, more west.
To the north and to the west. So the Halakarim lands, you'll see that notice over on the left side of the map. The Halakarim is the Samsut term for the British. It basically means ravagers, destroyers.
Okay, yeah, I see that over here.
So once you go west of there a little bit, you run into the ocean coast, and then you follow that coast north, and you'll start to run into the land bridges between the different lands.
On the southeast corner, is that a sandworm?
So it kind of is a sandworm type of creature. There is in the book, and here I will. They basically are just demons, is what they call them. Let me find the actual term because I can't remember off the top of my head.
While you're looking, is demons a thing? Like, we've got zombies and skeletons, so are demons a thing?
Well, kinda, because they do follow a. There are some of them that have broken off and formed a cult of Pazuzu. If you know about Pazuzu, there's a demon in Babylonian mythology. And there's a creature out there going by that name, which, from the descriptions, it seems to be kind of Fey-like, but also something darker. And nobody's quite sure what all it's got going on with it, because it's obviously shrouded in mystery.
Okay, so I'm not going to say yes or no, but I am going to tell you that I started this house going, do they know about Gilgamesh? So, figure it out. So, figure out whether or not I know who Pazuzu is.
So, with them knowing about Gilgamesh, and like I said, they've kind of manipulated the story a little bit for the general populace, because the original story of the original story of Gilgamesh was all about fighting to try and get more immortality, and then realizing, that's not that great of a prize. Well, for a society who actually has immortals, it can make people immortal, and that's kind of the main motivation, because you can, through enough hard effort, you could elevate yourself from Ardite all the way to Amalite if you really put in the effort for it. There are a couple of people who have done
that I hadn't gotten to, but yeah, usually in a caste system you cannot move, but this is one where you can technically move from your station to a higher station.
You could, if you put in sufficient effort, did enough advancements, contributed sufficiently to Samsut society. Yes, you definitely can.
Can you get lowered?
It's not. You could. You generally wouldn't be able to get lowered from Amalite status all the way down. Once you hit Amalite, they're generally going to keep you around. You'll probably, if they needed to get rid of you, they would probably just find a way to execute you. And there are power plays done where they will try to fight each other like that.
You can go up, but you can't really come back down.
So, but they changed Gilgamesh.
But yeah.
So they changed Gilgamesh because
they've manipulated the story
to suit their, Is he still, a half a god, a half of this, a half of that?
Oh yeah, no, he's got that sort of thing going on still.
They
But
had trouble with
it,
math,
it's
just so you know. There was
it's
some
more the
problems.
themes of, well, striving to be immortal is great. That's a good thing. That's what you're supposed to do.
Okay. So
And
this is
there's
kind of
a
cool.
one of the characters they put in there. He makes a comment about it because he said, I talked about it before. He's a trader, and he says that yeah, he managed to trade a somebody from the British side for a copy of the Epic of Gilgamesh from the original, from Earth, and he puts the comment as somebody's taken some creative liberties.
So if they see the Earth one, would that be like heresy?
Oh yeah, sure. So that would definitely create a lot of problems for them.
So do the Samsit know
No.
that they had people on Earth and that like do they know that there's that connection, or is it just that the English soldiers know that Brits know that there's a connection? Like do they
No, the Samsat know that they originated from the old world. They basically consider that world lost, which I mean, Babylon fell, so
found it?
they there's a good reason for that.
So on that cultural thing, the English are the English, the Brits, they're coming over. They're fighting with the Samsut. The Samsut use a lot of these skeletons and zombie things. Are they just completely freaked out? Like as a normal modern-ish human, if I went and there was a bunch of zombies being controlled by spikes and whatever in their heads, I think I would run away. Is that
Oh,
does
that
it
is exactly what sparked the war. I mean, remember, we're dealing with the Victorian era Anglican Church British. So they view fighting the Samsut as basically a holy requirement because they're desecrating the dead. But when it started out, they sat down to negotiations. They worked out translations to be able to talk to each other. And the Samsut leader was trying to negotiate with them and offered, we'll allow you, to come into the lands and trade and that sort of thing. In exchange, we want your dead. And the British were confused, like, what the heck are you talking about? And then he motions over, and a zombie comes walking out. And somebody on the British side freaks out and shoots it, and they just all start opening fire and take out the Samsut delegation. And from there, war ensues.
I'm learning a lot.
And they were just trying to get, something to animate to make their life a little bit easier, and got blown out of proportion because of
Oh,
misunderstanding,
exactly.
and boom.
Exactly. The Samsung are very practical about it. They just view the dead and life energy and everything just as a resource.
Well, I mean,
Human resources department for the Samsung takes a very different meaning.
Got it.
I've made jokes, but I'm pretty honest about it. Once I'm dead, I'm not using my body anymore. I don't care what they do with it. So, this is just kind of a better recycling. Okay, this is going to sound terrible, but wouldn't they smell bad?
Oh, they do. Yes, they
Like,
absolutely
I
do.
don't
The
know that you'd want
skeleton,
them cleaning your house.
yeah, the skeletons not as much, and the skeletons are generally because they can bleach the bones and everything like that. The skeletons they will use more around the cities for doing a lot of the work and labor and that sort of thing. And the skeletons are also a lot more useful in that regard because you can much more easily program skeletons. Like, so they have the brain matter still hanging around to make them think of anything. They are essentially just an automaton. So you could tell a skeleton, you have a doorman skeleton, just say, open this door when someone walks up to it. And then the skeleton will just stand there until somebody comes by and opens the door, and then and not need any further commands. It will continue to do that. A zombie would need continuous control, and yes, the smell is a very bad aspect of it. So the zombies tend to get used more for the fighting force. They'll use them fields away from the population centers.
So is there a group of people like in ancient Egypt that used to like they handle the body? Like are there people who will take a zombie and take it down to a skeleton to make it easier to use? Or will they process the
Generally,
undead like
they will
or
they will use the zombies until they enough of them has rotted away. They just kind of let the rot occur, and
got
then
it.
once it has gotten to that point, then they will recycle into a skeleton.
Got
So
it.
I have
Okay.
a question. Do the zombies ever like become less controlled and become problematic? I mean, not like a zombie uprising because there's zombies and they may not think well enough to uprise, but my control person's napping and I think we eat these guys. Like, do you have zombies get out of hand?
Not under the normal circumstances. Like I said, if they're not continuously receiving commands, then they will just stand there and shake a shiver, and basically they're reliving their death throes. And that's all they will do once they're no longer getting commands.
Yeah.
I will say the demo scenario we had for Gen Con had some situations with undead going berserk. I won't spoil how all that goes in case anybody ever wants to play that scenario, but it's one where you get to explore that idea.
Okay, so a Nethermancer and a zombie controller are fighting over zombies. Who wins?
Oh, I would probably say the Nethermancer would end it up because they control at a much more fundamental level.
Good answer. I like it. Now, same scenario, but they're zombie dinosaurs.
Probably the same thing, although if the undead controller is riding the dinosaur, then they win on the cool factor.
Cool factor matters in gaming. It literally
Exactly.
does. Hello, Mr. Pink. He's one of our favorite guests who doesn't realize that he's like a stand-in guest. Like he's my other co-host, I think. Lady Styx and Mr. Pink. Oh, I'm sorry your internet's not good tonight. All right. This is usually about the time, Lady Styx, that you poke me, so I'm going to poke you.
Oh, what's the question?
Well, it's not a question. It's we have about 10 minutes left. Do you have any other questions you'd like to ask Lady Styx?
No, I'm still like fulminating and realizing that I probably need to get in a group so that I can see exactly how much damage bone fragments can do versus zombie slime.
Bone fragments, shrapnel. I can't say the word today. Shrapnel, yeah. Well, if I put together a second group, you're in. I don't know what we're gonna do with it, but you're in. Do an all ladies group, and we'll be criminals, and we'll start a war.
I am there.
I figured.
I will tell you this one. They have the Life Giver engineers have all the different professions get special abilities. I have one for some of the Life Giver engineers where they can trigger specifically and how they will trigger a battery to explode. The special name the name for the special ability that I gave them is 5 is right out. And if you know Monty Python, you'll know the reference.
Well, I do have a rare blue parrot somewhere, and a knight who's not dead yet.
I will say though, my favorite of the special abilities that I gave people, this is what I'm proud of. They have a profession called the law champion. They actually have trial by combat as an option within their legal system in certain areas. They can have a lawyer who will go up and argue for you, and then if it goes to trial by combat, will then go and fight for you. And they get a ability for their master tier, where it goes back and it retroactively increases their durability all across their ranks, so they get a massive boost in health. And I've called the ability Durable Power of Attorney.
I love it. So what's that
Really love that one.
profession called?
The law champion.
Law champion. Because I remember I ran 1879 in Texarkana, right? And I had one of the characters was the lawgiver. But I think that's on the sword side. Because I didn't have any Samsut ones. All right.
Yeah, I think when you ran to do that, I didn't have the Samsut scenario. I have it now, so if you ever want to run it again.
Well, you may see parts of that in a certain other campaign. We will also say, to spoil things slightly for you, Brad, you know how you guys have some dormouse? Would you believe there are other dormouse that aren't your dormouse?
Oh, I would be surprised if there wasn't.
Yeah. So, what about our audience participation peoples? Do you guys have any other questions? Mr. Pink, the not our Brad? See how good I am tonight on time?
I know, you're doing amazing.
Yeah, you loaned me the brain for tonight because you're like, F that, your job. Okay.
I did warn you early that it was not a great day.
No, it was going to be a fantastic day. I've had a good time. There's not enough dinosaurs in your book, Brad, but hey.
Well, the dinosaurs are more in the sword book.
Sure.
Okay, now I have one question because I missed it. Why are there pictures of people smuggling water balloons?
Those are very good zombie stick figures. They're girl zombie stick figures. See, they have spikes in their brain.
Water balloons. Okay.
They're girl zombies with spikes in their brain. See, apparently,
you definitely have to go back and listen to the beginning of the podcast.
I even made it classy. I put a hat and shoes on it. You just wait. One of these days, I'm doing an entire book of stick figures. We'll have to stamp an 18 only label on it because there'll be boy stick figures and girl stick figures, and I'll get yelled at. It'll be great.
I would buy that.
It's part of my campaign to get fired. Illicit stick figures until Frost fires me. What are my chances,
now we're
Brad?
Gonna have to push you to make. We're going to have to push you to make illicit dragon stick figures.
You know, dragons are hard.
I don't know.
Dragons are hard. I don't know. Like, I can do orcs, and I can do trolls, and I can do vampires, and elves, and I can do dwarves. But I don't know about dragons. Dragons seems hard. I did come back from Texarkana with more dinosaurs and another Godzilla, by the way.
Yes, you mentioned that last podcast.
I'm still happy, though.
I know you are. I know.
I'm a simple creature. We had an ongoing joke at my tables that I was bribable. Go ahead.
Kickstarter questions. How long is it running?
20.
So at the moment,
3 more days.
Okay.
21.
21. Shoot.
At the
Sorry,
moment,
Brad.
Well, here, I'll go ahead and I'll put the link, and if you want to post that everywhere else, we'll put that right in here.
So 21 more days.
Okay.
We are currently at 32.59. Where our base goal is 5,000. If we get to 10,000, we will get we get to unlock the map that I posted earlier of the Samsut lands, and the map. If we can hit that goal, that will be delivered for free to anybody who gets a physical.
Awesome.
Yeah, if you get a physical, you'll get a physical copy, but it won't just be black and white. It'll have a bit more to it.
Yes, that's the black and white copy that went in the book because everything's black and white in the book. But yeah, we will. It will be updated from there.
Yep. All right, lady. What else?
think that was it. I just knew that it had just started, and I was wondering how long it would go. I learned
The other thing, and you can see from the picture, lady, is it's not just the Samsut source book, it's also the third part of the trilogy adventures, which is Deathless on the Nile. Which I thought the cool thing...
The three...
Oh, I was going to say, I think the cool thing, Brad, is, and you can explain better on this, is that it is the third part, but you can run it by itself.
Yes, any of the three adventures could be run as their own individual modules. So it starts off with Big Trouble in Little Soho. That will take you in London, where you start to uncover this strange drug smuggling ring and end up having to deal with that situation. The investigations from there lead you to the Grove, and you go over on the Grove, and then you have to go into the Saurid side, trying to track down the source from all of this. Through the course there, you find an Amalite who was taken from the Samsut homeworld, and now you have to try and get him back to his lands, because basically not quite a prisoner of war. The British didn't capture him, so he's a victim. And the gentleman's code is like, well, we can't just execute the guy. We need to try and deliver him safely. So you're tasked to go take him back to the Samsut lands. So any of these could be run as their own individual module contained, but they do connect together to make a 3-part story.
See, that is beyond cool. I like it when I can get source books and stuff, and I love it when I immediately get something that I can play and run and enjoy with my friends.
And the other cool thing, Brad, and again, you can correct me, these are all written.
Oh, yeah, everything is done.
The art's done, and the layout's done too, right?
Yeah, we had everything done with the Samsut source book, where we did a sample printing that we had for Gen Con this year. I am in my hands right now holding a copy of the Samsut source book, a physical copy. So they are done. Everything's all done for us now. We just couldn't get that printed in time, but everything is complete. We just need to get the production out.
So we've got the production samples so that we know they're good. We just have to do the full production. That's awesome.
That.
Yeah. All right.
So when it comes to a lot of the Kickstarter campaigns, you're waiting on a lot of products to be, they're most of the way there and they need to be finished. This one, it's done.
Yeah, I mean that happens a lot with Earth Dawn.
It's just the production.
And we're not bashing Earth Dawn because we love Earth Dawn, but Earth Dawn has a tendency that we're not quite done with stuff. But Brad is very good at like stabbing people and beating them and kicking them and having it all done. See?
Well, no, that's more. It's more. Hey,
Brad
guys,
is a better taskmaster.
If you don't get this done, Andy's gonna come stab you.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed because he's never once asked to borrow the pokey stick.
No, he is correct. Technically, he tells me, and then I have to be like, "Hi, do we need to talk? Why aren't we done?" No, actually, Brad is a great line. Look, Brad is a great line developer, and he knows that I heart him much. He's a very good line developer.
And I will say, we joke about it, but in all honesty, the writing team that I have is phenomenal. It has taken a while to get everybody built up, get the team built up and up to speed and everything, but they put in so much work to be able to get this stuff done.
They do.
They do a fantastic
But you do a good job as a leader. So, and I support you. All right, with that,
I am super excited that it's done, and all we need is just to get it funded and printed and out to everybody's hot little hands. And I think with that, Andy, it's probably time to sign off.
It is time to say goodbye. All right, the Brads. Either of you want to say goodnight?
Well, since I'm unmuted, I will. Good night, everybody. Thanks very much for tuning in. And as always, if there's any other questions or any other stuff you want to learn about, come poke me on Discord.